All right, it is 1:30 and we're going to get ready to get started on the webinar, the Introduction to Ergonomics. And this is kind of scripted more towards, managers and supervisors. And I'm happy to share this presentation with you if you'd like it afterwards. Just email me, and I've got all the pictures compressed, so I should be hopefully able to email it. But let's just, we'll get into some housekeeping stuff first. Up in your upper right-hand corner, you should have an orange tab that's called your Grab tab, and that opens and closes your menu. You can mute or unmute yourself. Right now, I'm not getting any feedback, so everyone is unmuted. But really, probably the best way to communicate during this is on the chat screen. So you type in your message on the chat screen, who you want it to go to, and you can send it to somebody else in the, that's on the webinar. You can send it to everybody. You can send it to just me. That tends to work the best. I occasionally will have people call in, and because of just the connection, we get a ton of feedback. So I may have to mute everybody. I'm hoping not. All right. So what we're trying to get out of this, or what I'm hoping you'll get out of this is being able to define what ergonomics is, because it's this very nebulous, nobody's really quite sure what it is, even the government. But I want to define why it's important, why it's good, why it helps, and then we're going to look at just the parts of the body that tend to get injured at work. Identify those work activities, and then just recognizing the early symptoms, or really the symptoms period of the injuries. And the truth of it, the big takeaway for most of your workers' comp programs, if not all, these ergonomic or these soft tissue disorders, or work-related musculoskeletal disorders, the soft tissue stuff is probably going to be either your biggest frequency or your biggest expense, if not both. And so you can absolutely impact your workers' comp numbers, and there's a lot of opportunity here. Probably about 80% for most of us are the soft tissue repetitive motion type of issues. So just to define what ergonomics is, there's a lot of different versions of this. There's a lot of different definitions. To me, I like the ergonomics. To me, means we're fitting the job to the worker. So we're making the work that they're doing fit the people doing it. I think when you go with that definition, or if you go with that mindset, then you see all the potential with this. And it technically is you're merging the design of the job and the design of the person to match your capabilities. But if we look at fitting the job to the actual worker, then we can really get some things done. And this is a very simple, and I'm not in love with the solution, but this is what we were doing before on the left picture, and we got a cart to move those rolls, which is significantly better. And but that's kind of the heart of ergonomics is it's little incremental improvements. It's little things can have a big impact, and it's also a lot easier to do little incremental improvements versus doing big gigantic ones, because you're going to get less resistance. But yeah, is it perfect what we're doing now? No, but it sure is way better, no question, than what we were carrying it on our back. So why, what's the benefits of getting into ergonomics, or having a program, or even taking this webinar? Preventing injuries alone is well worth it. I think it's significantly worth it. But the other real truth of this is happier people get more work done. They miss less time at work. If they're not tired and uncomfortable, they're going to get more work done. So yeah, you'll drive your injury costs down without question, but you're also going to have the ancillary benefit, and some would say it's equally as good, that you're going to have happier, more productive employees. So you're going to hear the work-related, actually you're not going to hear that from me. So they call it work-related musculoskeletal disorders. We're just going to call them MSDs, or musculoskeletal disorders. And if I'm being brutally honest, I'm probably going to call them soft tissue injuries more than anything else. But we're going to look at some of the common types, and then we're going to look at a lot of causes. And that's where, if you want this presentation to look at later on, I'm happy to provide it. There are a couple things in your materials tab. It's towards the bottom of your menu there. And there should be 2 attachments. One is just a form to interview employees, about, where they've noticed that they notice sore shoulders or backs or knees. And then the other one is just an overview of ergonomics. So what the whole process looks like. So if you need to share that with somebody, or you need to get some buy-in with people up the food chain, I'm happy to provide any of this stuff. But you got a couple things already. So most common affected areas, and this is dated, but it's hard to get Bureau of Labor statistics within the last 5 years. They tend to do them in 5-year batches. And this holds pretty true. It has for quite some time. You tend to, we have strains and sprains and soft tissue stuff with the upper body, with the upper extremities, arms, shoulders, elbows, then your lower extremities, and then you get into the back. That's your almost 75% is upper extremities, lower extremities, and the back. But they can hit anywhere, and this is just a breakdown, and it stays pretty close year to year on these. So these are so this helps sometimes if you're looking like, oh man, I don't know what type of injury or what type of thing we should be looking at. Well, even if you go by the chart and you're like, okay, well, the upper extremities seem to be a pretty bad one. It gives you a sense of where to kind of aim for. And with these, I just want to show so we have the highest rate just the highest rate with repetitive motion. So strains, sprains, carpal tunnel, things of that nature. But you have people you have the highest number of days away, but you have the highest incident rate from overexertion. So the repetitive motion is a big chunk of it, and doing things over and over and over and over again. But then you also see a big driver in that somebody is, lifting up something maybe they shouldn't have, or a little too heavy, should have got some help. And we have that kind of that bang moment where somebody hurts their back, it hurts their shoulder. So, and I like showing this because it's not all one or the other. Some of your workers' comp claims like this are going to be something that took 2 years to develop. Other ones are going to be like, how the heck did that happen? They were fine yesterday. So you're going to get a mix of something that took a long time to happen, or we had somebody overexert. But at the end of it, what causes these soft tissue injuries or the musculoskeletal disorders? Heavy, frequent, or awkward lifting, pushing, pulling, or carrying loads, working in awkward postures. That has been in my experience has been a really, really big one. And then hand intensive work, sorting, grading, things that in that nature could be absolutely, fall into that. And then to further complicate that, your risk injury depends on how long are you exposed to it, how frequently are you exposed to it, how much you're exposed to it. Or you combine all these different risk factors, and the more risk factors you have, the likelihood and the severity of your injury goes up. So duration's it's kind of a double-edged sword. Most of the time, you usually need hours and hours of exposure before risk factors become a concern. But when you see situations where they're moving something that's just way too big. I saw somebody just a couple of weeks ago trying to move about a 16-foot long cant by themselves, trying to haul a log that had to have weighed, 300 pounds, because they wanted to get it out of their way because it shouldn't have been on their conveyor. But something like that, you can see it either they're hunched over, working and moving their hands and their wrists a lot, or it can be because they just grabbed something way too big. So the duration it's not just one or the other. It tends to be a combination of both, but we want to look at both. We want to try to measure both when we're collecting our data. So in the frequency, there's a lot of different things we're all doing, and be quite honest with you, you could probably spend the next year or two just looking at your ergonomics in your office areas, because those are generally pretty bad. We're looking at computer, monitor heights and where the keyboards are at, and the type of chair they're using. But we've got a lot of frequency tasks where they're not necessarily assembling some of their sorting stuff, or their grading stuff, or their flipping stuff, or their stacking stuff. And so anytime they're and we want to track that when we're doing the monitoring, how many times over the course of an hour are they flipping boards? How many times are they shifting them over? How many times are they stacking those bags of bark or of wood chips? And so we want to actually kind of measure the frequency and really capture that number when we're doing the data collection. And so the intensity is pretty straightforward. How much does it weigh? How much force are they having to exert? And then if we're doing a lot of hand tools, something like grinders or sanders or things like that, we may want to measure the vibration level. So you get a sense, because that is one of the risk factors. And then on a personal note, I was told yesterday that I type very hard. And they found that amusing, that I was working on an Ergonomics webinar, and I guess I type very, very hard. So we're putting that in the intensity bucket. So anytime you're taking more than one risk factor, and really realistically, we're probably seeing multiple 2 or 3 or 4 different risk factors, multiple risk factors. Like, they could be bending and twisting while they're lifting, or they're doing a lot of repetitive motion and their wrists are bent. So we're gonna see multiple ones of these, and that's why it's so important when we're doing the data collection. And that would be the next phase of this, that we go in and we just record what we're seeing, not what we suspect or what we think. That we go in purely blank slate and we monitor these jobs, we monitor these tasks, or we monitor these people, and all we're there to do is just collect data, and we have no skin in the game whatsoever. Is if we can do that, you're going to find out real quick where your risks really are. Whereas if we go in and we think we already know what the issue is, you're going to find you're going to bend everything to meet your solution you've already decided. And if you want to make something better and say, hey, we need to do this period and make sense, then do it. I just wouldn't make it part of a big ergonomics program. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. So I see a lot of this, and I really love the pictures to the right there, because that's what they were doing before. Is we'd be hunched over, getting in these baskets or these bins, getting stuff out, and they put in, it wasn't a very expensive piece of equipment at all, but they put in this basically it tips it up, so it's easier for them to get to. Is it perfection? No, I don't know that perfection in ergonomics exists. I don't know that we should be shooting for it. But I can tell you, I'm happy to see all the robots that are doing a lot of the stacking of the bags of chips and bark and stuff, because that's a hard job to do, and I like it when robots do that job. But once again, we're trying to make things incrementally better a little bit, and you'll find that as you're going through and you're trying to develop your ergonomics program, or you're trying to make improvements, it's a good thing to shoot for the small. Right off the bat, do a bunch of little small things. People are less resistant, but also if we were wrong, it's not such a big deal to back out of it. Heavy lifting, obviously, we're going to see a lot of that as well too. Hopefully neither one of these, but I do see guys all the time trying to grab cans or boards or equipment or motors that they shouldn't be grabbing by themselves. We got a forklift right next to them that could be doing it. So the heavy lifting, obviously. Doing a lot of frequent lifting. We've got that in our locations as well too. So we're already, kind of hitting 100% on these. And then the awkward lifting, this is one, if you're looking for a quick win, or you're looking for somewhere we can make some improvements, the awkward lifting is a real good one. We've got it in probably multiple locations, and we may not even be aware of it, because that's just how we've always done it. But when you're monitoring positions, or you're just going through collecting data, you'll see some of these, and those are generally pretty quick win opportunities. So I see awkward postures a lot. a lot. And the one on the right with the head bent down, and we got wristband, and we've got a bunch of things going on there. I see things like that a lot, in that they're doing very detail-oriented work, and they really need to see what they're looking at, and they're using a grinder that was purchased in the 30s that's been at that same height since it was born. And quite honestly, our employees are taller now than they were, in 35. So we need to, if we can, make the job fit the worker a little bit better. And like I said, with office environments, you could spend the next 2 years of your ergonomics program just getting people's office spaces to be ergonomic. I'm not necessarily advocating that's a direction you go, but if you wonder if you got issues, just walk into your office, you'll see a lot. So we're trying to, and these are not great pictures, so I apologize for these, but it's hard to find we want neutral posture, whether it's standing, they're not extended or bent over or head tilted forward or back, their knees aren't bent, they're just kind of in a neutral posture. And we want the same thing kind of with sitting. And these are, once again, not perfect pictures on this, but it gives you a general sense of the positions that human beings like to be in, or that we'll call it, they're, like I said, the neutral posture. So we're trying to get to that. And we're not going to be able to do maybe any jobs where we keep people in that neutral posture all the time, but if we can bring them back there or return them to it, and I know I've said this a bunch of times already, but even if we make it a little better, it's still an improvement. If you make it a little better, your risk of injury or your severity of injury goes down. Awkward postures, especially for our millwrights and our electricians and our maintenance people, these ones are rough ones, because there's times where the work just cannot be moved. The work is where it's at, and we've got to get in there and do it in those locations. What I do want to show you, and just kind of sort it out a little bit with this, with these postures where we've got low work, you tend to see the big injuries be back and knees. That tends to be where they're doing low work, where we've got to get down to it, and that's the majority of what they do. You see back and knee injuries almost exclusively. With the high work, where they're reaching over their head a lot, and we've probably got that too, you tend to see shoulders, neck, and upper back. You see a lot of shoulder and a lot of neck, where their work is up above their natural posture. And then with reaching stuff, you kind of can get the whole catch-all with this, but you tend to see the injuries in the arms, shoulders, and back again. You can get it all the way down through the legs, but this is one where a lot of times where the work area where we've given them the space to get the job done, we made that space so big that they have to lunge or they have to reach to get those things. And even bringing something in, bringing that work into them another foot closer, or finding a way to get them a foot closer to it, it makes a big difference in that you really do see your frequency and your severity of those, arms and neck and shoulder and knee issues really, really decrease. With these, we've got other risk factors, and I'm probably risk factoring you to death with this, but we take that they're doing that repetitive motion and they've got bent wrists. Well, now we're starting to get into multiplication tables now of how likely or how severe this injury is going to be. There's a lot of gripping and pinching that our folks are having to do, whether it's a tool, whether it's a control, whether it's a part, whether it's a board. And so we're not going to be able to eliminate those aspects from the job, not all of them anyways. But we might be able to decrease it, or we might be able to come up with a better tool or a better method, or move it closer, or we might be able to decrease the number of times they have to do it. And even decreasing something by 10% that's a big win. Do see a bit of really hand intensive work where they're just doing the same thing for 8 hours a day. If we've got those situations, the very first thing is I would ask you to do or recommend that you do is get some sort of job rotation. Because what happens with these type of positions is they'll work it, and this is one that it may take a year for the symptoms to get so bad that we go to the doctor. but then you see them, they don't generally get back to 100% ever. And so and we'll talk about some quick things you can do that can make a big difference or give you some improvements. With gripping, we're going to have jobs where there's a, they're having to use a lot of grip strength, and that is what it is. We're going to have jobs that they have to do, a pinching motion, have to carry things with a pinching motion. But I will say that the grip strength is literally 5 times stronger exerting the same amount of force. So if you can switch it to a grip versus a pinch grab, that's an improvement. In that you're requiring 5 times as much effort to hold the same amount of weight. And then your grip strength can get affected by, if your wrists are bent, you don't have as much capacity. If you're picking up something that's slippery, or that's going to affect your grip strength. Your gloves, whether you're cold, so there's a lot of things.
Yeah. No way. Oh yeah, I see it.
Mute everybody. Sorry. A lot of different things that can affect this, and we're gonna record those when we're doing the data collection, and we'll go through all of those things, and those are future webinars, but we'll go over how to collect all this data. All right, so I might get my thing working again here. Apologize. So I do see a lot of this. This is one of the big ones you really want to try to eliminate. Once again, our mechanics, our millwrights, our electricians, we may not have this luxury, but if we've got production line work where they're having to bend their wrists, we need to relocate something, either the work or the conveyor height or the people, because this is the bent wrist is, I won't say it's a guarantee, but it's dang near. I don't know that I've ever seen a situation where somebody had bent wrists on a regular basis where they didn't manifest some pretty significant injuries from it. And we've already brought this up. You start throwing together multiple risk factors, and your risk of having an injury goes up, but then your severity and how long you're going to be managing that goes up. And we probably all have at least one workers' comp claim that's been open for 4, 5, 10 years. And I'd be willing to bet money that long-term, really terrible workers' comp claim is a soft tissue or musculoskeletal thing. And unless they had like a really severe fall or something where they broke their back. Most of the time, those long-term ones are ones where we're never going to get them back to 100% ever. Going on the office thing, intensive keying, and I put this in because I was being teased yesterday about my hard typing. The vibration of those tools is another one of those factors that can increase the risk or increase the severity. And you got moderate stuff like your grinders and sanders, and then you got the high impact stuff like your air tools. And once again, we may not be able to eliminate these, but I can tell you that with the hand sanders, they're very well aware of the the vibration being a risk factor, and the amount that they've decreased is remarkable. You can definitely, I don't want to say definitely, I would say it's very likely you can find a low vibration, solution, because this is, as ergonomics continues to grow, and eventually the government's going to, OSHA's going to require us to do something ergonomically. You'll see more companies kind of align with that and provide you products that help. The using your knee or your hands as a hammer, this is generally with a lot of investigations on these type of injuries, you see that being a regular practice. And when we talk to the employees, it would be one of the first things I'd recommend. We want to specifically get into like injuries they've had in the past or things they've noticed, even if they didn't report it. Was there discomfort? Was there pain? Was there numbness? Was there tingling? We want to hear about as many symptoms or opportunities as possible, because it's gonna help us determine where to go with our efforts. And that would be the first place I'd go, is I'd interview your employees, even the ones that haven't filed a workers' comp claim, because all of them have worked at some point in time and had a sore back or a sore neck. We'll find out what job they were doing and how long they've been doing it, because that will help us really laser in on where we should start. if you are going to go with the ergonomics program, you really need to encourage people to report symptoms early. If they're in pain and it's persistent and it's getting worse, or if it radiates from their shoulder down their arm, if there's numbness or tingling, or if they can't sleep at night, they're past where they should have come and talked to you. These are significant issues, and we're getting into with some of these with nerve damage. But we want people to report things to us sooner rather than later, because if we can get it sooner. So I would want somebody to come in and say, yeah, my back's a little stiff and sore. I did this all day yesterday. You get a chance to manage that out of ever even being going to see the doctor. We can adjust their work, or we can adjust what they're doing, or we can put them on a job rotation. But it's the sooner we are informed of these symptoms of their pain or their numbness or those things, the sooner we can start to manage it. And you absolutely can take that incident and prevent it from turning into a lost time or restricted duty claim. Absolutely. You're going to have the ability, you're going to have the opportunity to take somebody coming in with a complaint. I hate to call it that because they're just reporting symptoms, but they're going to come in and they're going to report those symptoms, and we're going to get an opportunity. We can keep this from becoming something worse, and we get creative, or we give them something different to do. But the truth of it is, early treatment's more successful. The sooner we can get to treating it, the more success we're going to have. We don't want to find out somebody's been dealing with something, has been in pain, and hasn't been able to feel their hands for a year. Because by that point, there's permanent damage done. We're never going to get them back 100%. So if you need, reason to establish an ergonomic program, you got to go sell somebody on it. These soft tissue injuries are going to be very likely your highest dollar amount and your highest frequency of claims. If you look at all the strains and sprains and sore backs and sore shoulders and sore knees, you're gonna see real quick, like, holy moly, there's quite a lot of these, and they may not all be large dollar ones, but man, when they go bad, something that's they've been, they've had issues with for a year or two, those ones are massive dollar amount ones. So look at your workers' comp history. Say an interview the employees again, because you're going to find out really quick where either from your injury history or from employee complaints where your highest risk or your frequency are, really quick. And so it gives us a great starting point. As part of this, there's going to need to be some additional training, and for everybody. So for managers, supervisors, leads, all the way to your frontline employees, so they understand what's going on and they understand what we're trying to do, because you're going to need buy-in at every level. Because if your general manager isn't down with the ergonomics program, then you don't have any hope. If your employees don't understand what you're doing and they just think it's some management thing to make them produce more boards, then you don't have any hope. If everybody understands what we're trying to do and why, and if you tell people, yeah, we're trying to make your job easier, make it so you don't get hurt, you tend to get some buy-in, but you're going to need that. You're going to need that buy-in at every level. So you're establishing your ergonomic program. We're going to monitor and record high-risk jobs, or if you got one you just can't stand to see anymore, it's bad, start with it. And when you're doing that documentation, video it if you can possible. If at all possible, video it, and how long do I video it? If you want to take it for 30 minutes, go for it. If you got the ability to take and look at that and dissect it, go for it. But we want to see all the steps of them doing the job. We want to have a sense of how many repetitions an hour, how many pounds worth of product are they moving, how much force. And then if there's setup changes, if they're having to do 5-6 setup changes a day, we need to know that. But while you're recording this, you're not looking for solutions at all. Your job is to only record and collect data. That's it. And then if you can put together an ergonomics team, somebody's going to help you with this, then we're going to have them review what we found after we've done some analysis, and we can answer questions. And now we're starting to look for solutions. And you're also, I think it's important to have some frontline employees on your ergo team, on your ergonomics team, sorry. They're going to be able to help you find the roadblocks or where you're going to see resistance. because there will always be something like, oh, people really like those, really like that saw, and it's the most ergonomically terrifying tool you've ever seen. So there's going to be some resistance to change just because I think it's human nature. But it really is, and I probably said it 20 times now, those little incremental solutions are good. They are a good thing. They're easy to implement. A lot of times you can do multiple ones in a day. You tend to have less resistance if you're only changing one little part of their world. And then if we made a mistake or our data was bad or we just missed a roadblock, pulling that little thing back is a lot simpler than going in and changing all their equipment, changing all their tools, changing their world. Because you're probably not going to get commitment to the new thing if you're changing their entire work area. So we're moving along without the ergonomics program. We're going to implement solutions, and then we're going to actually monitor them and make sure they worked. We're going to interview employees to see how they like it. How can we make it better? We're going to track some things of like leading indicators. So if you want to have a sense of how is your ergonomic program doing, we'll start measuring leading things. How many jobs have we assessed? How many jobs do we have with, and how many jobs do we have without improvements? How much of our workforce is trained? I like going after those because it's telling us where we're headed. And you're going to track the lagging ones, but these are ones that have already happened. It's too late if we're getting these. We're looking at injury rates or how severe was our injury, but we'll monitor and make sure what we did worked and that it's working for employees. We'll learn how to get a little bit better, and then we'll just go to the next ergonomic improvement, to the next job. So we're in our infancy here on ergonomics. And what do you need to do to start? Like, okay, I've convinced you, hopefully, that you want to do this. You got to get the buy-in above you. It's critical. This will not work if you don't have it. And if you can't get that, then we'll talk about a couple things here in a bit that you can do. But if you don't have that, you don't have an ergonomics program. And look at your injury trends, your history, talk to employees. Then you'll start monitoring jobs. I suggest the whole thing. You're interviewing employees. They'll help you come up with some great solutions. But you also want to involve the employees because they're really going to be the ones that have to implement or follow your solutions. And then just continual training on this. There's new stuff on ergonomics every day. There's new thought processes. And I'm not advocating those like square keyboards or the weird chairs or stuff like that. Trying to keep a little more real world is we can always get a little bit better. We can always make things a little bit easier. I've got a mill that I'm been really impressed with, and that their goal is to make everybody's job easier. That's what's driving them all day, every day. And they're having some pretty remarkable success at every level. And profitable and churn rate and employee happiness. I mean, every possible way to be successful, and it's pretty fascinating to watch that take place. But that's their thing, is we're going to make everybody's job easier every day. So if you can't get any buy-in, all right, you don't have an ergonomics program. Sorry. What can you do? You don't have too many options. So you can, teach people proper lifting techniques. I mean, we've probably all done that before, but we can do that. Job rotation is your biggest and most powerful weapon in your arsenal. And what you want to do is, if we have people in, say, 4 different positions, hopefully they're working a job that stresses their arms and at one task, and then it stresses their legs and hips at another task. So if we're just stressing different body parts, so we're not just wearing out one part of their body. And you look at the ergonomic tools. There's thousands, if not millions, of different ergonomic tools. You can look at the workstations. You can put in anti-fatigue mats. You can have the tables that raise and lower, or the control panels that raise and lower. You can reorient the work. If we're doing something and we've always done it that way, it's been done on the floor because that's just how we've always done it. Well, you can look at, okay, let's move that up off the floor so it fits that neutral posture a little bit better. Stretches are huge. stretches are massively successful and accomplish what we want them to. They're not popular. And they're not popular. People don't like to do them, and people don't like to have to enforce doing them. But if job rotation is your biggest weapon in your arsenal, the stretches would be your second one. And that is not one that people like to do. And then micro breaks is a little bit different. It's a little outside of the box, but basically you have people work for 30 minutes and they stop and kind of like shake out, do like little mini stretches, or just return that neutral posture for, they work for 30 and they have a micro break for 3 type of thing. And most of the times when I see it and it's done successfully, they're just kind of shaking out. So they're loosening up their body and they're going back to it. So and this is subject to change, but this is the tentative schedule on the webinars, because I've had a lot of questions on ergonomics. The next one would be in October, where we're going to be talking about conducting trend analysis, looking at your workers' comp numbers, talking to your employees, and finding where the real problems are, the real body parts that are stressed and damaged. In November, the next month, it would be actually doing that monitoring and the record keeping, how to do those properly. And there's so many resources, even freeware type resources out there. I think we've got an app at TPM to help with this as well too. And then in December, we're going to be looking at, okay, how to find realistic and implement solutions to ergonomic issues. How do we make it better? And that's where, right now I'm in the data collection side of finding things that my accounts have done all over the country that have made things better. Because if we can steal ideas and not steal, we're going to borrow, implement ideas and make it work for us without doing a whole bunch of the work, that's great. But we also may find out too, it's like, yeah, that sounds great on paper, but it's not going to work in real life. So that's kind of what I'm collecting right now. So here's my contact information. I'll leave this up for a little bit. That's just kind of your intro to ergonomics, the whole concept. Hopefully we've left with a couple things that are beneficial, but on that note, don't forget to grab those materials. And then if you do want a copy of my PowerPoint that I did this webinar off of, just email me after this and I'll send you a copy. I just want to thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to doing 3, 4, 5 more of these as the year progresses. I'll leave it up for a couple of minutes and then we're going to shut her down. Thank you.